You're listening to The Secrets of Sacred Art, where we unearth the hidden treasures, history, and deeper meaning in religious and sacred art. We're your hosts, Alix Murray
and Kathryn Laffrey. Welcome to episode 35, Antonio Gaudí, As a Tree Stands. In this episode, we'll explore the art, images, and life and faith of Antoni.
Poor
Sorry. Guy, I'm making him Italian. Antoni Gaudí. Please follow The Secrets of Sacred Art in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app. For a full experience, you can join us on the SQPN YouTube channel. Highly recommend it, folks. You got to see these images. Yes. You see all these great images that we're discussing in the show. You can also find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X at SQPN, or on Instagram at StarQuest Network. So, Alix, will you please give us a little background on our beloved Antoni
Gaudí? Yeah, very happily. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to introduce or reintroduce our listeners and viewers to this man. I just learned so much and I just want to learn more about him. So, in brief, Antoni Gaudí i Cornet was born on the 25th of June in 1852 in Rio, Spain. He had 4 older siblings. He outlived all of his siblings. Only 2 sisters lived to adulthood. It seems his family was very close, and one of his nieces and his father lived together with him until his niece's death, and I wasn't quite sure when she died, but she was quite young, and his father's death at age 93. He was very proud of his that his Catalan and Mediterranean culture heavily influenced his designs. He considered the beauty of his region to be the source of creativity that was very distinct from the aesthetics of Northern Europe. Excuse me. He's reported to have said, "We own the image. Fantasy comes from the ghosts. Fantasy is what people in the North own. We are concrete. The image comes from the Mediterranean area. Orestes knows his way, where Hamlet is torn apart by his doubts."
Oh, please, we got to get Gaudí together with Tolkien.
Yeah, I know. They could probably have an interesting conversation. So Gaudí lived through a politically tumultuous time when he saw his beloved Catalan culture under threat. He was not politically active, but he did stand up for the region that he loved so much. In 1920, he was beaten and imprisoned by police for refusing to speak Spanish. He told them, and I quote, "My profession obliges me to pay my taxes, and I pay them, but not to stop speaking my own language." And for that, he was beaten and arrested. Enough said about that. Yeah. So his personal life seems to be indistinguishable from his professional life. He never married, and his religious devotion only increased as he matured. After the death of his niece, his father, and a close colleague, he said, "My good friends are dead. I have no family. I have no clients, no fortune, nor anything. Now I can dedicate my life and myself entirely to the church." Gaudí's faith was the foremost influence of his work. He was a devout and energetic Catholic. He sometimes in his youth fasted to such a degree it threatened his health. At one point, the Bishop of Barcelona ordered Gaudí to modify his fasting as he was at risk of death because of his extreme approach. That was more when he was older, yeah.
Yeah.
He was obedient to the bishop's orders, and that's very important. The influence of his Catholic faith and his love of Catalan is seen throughout his work, both religious and secular. According to one article I read, if any secular order came to him, he had to first ask the Virgin of Montserrat for permission and guidance. Luckily, for his clients, according to Apelles Mestres, the Virgin always let Gaudí undertake secular works. So that's very nice. Gaudí was, yes. So very sadly, Gaudí was struck by a tram on his way to daily confession and prayer on the 27th of June. So just a few days after 2 days after his birthday. Because of his simple dress and humble appearance, he was thought to have been an old beggar by the public. And it was not until he was taken to the hospital, and it was a hospital for paupers, is what it was called. It was discovered that it was the great Antoni Gaudí who was the victim of that accident. And he died in the hospital after 3 days of treatment at the age of 73.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had read a couple articles about his death also and was surprised when people didn't, first of all, recognize him in the street.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, which shows to his humility. I mean, he's not strutting around going,
yeah, here I am, the great Gaudí.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And they even said like his shirt was being held together with like safety pins. I mean,
gosh.
He was just kind of,
yeah,
not strutting his stuff. And then even in the hospital, I mean, it took a while for people to point him out. So, I mean, he was without care for quite some time.
I know. Yeah, because he was in a hospital for the poor. And at this time, I mean, I don't know a lot about Spanish history, to be fair. I really don't. But, the early 20th century, there was just a lot. There was so much happening. And, lots of things like the care for the most vulnerable, they just fell through the cracks of, everything that was, all the upheaval and everything was, and he just, in some ways, I think that was probably one of the reasons it happened. But, so he died. I mean, he lived a good long time, especially at that time of history. But God bless him. Yeah.
And it's interesting just to think of, you never know when God's going to call you.
That's true. And he was clearly ready. Yeah. On his way to confession and daily prayer. Yeah. I think he's
That's
okay. That's
the way to go right there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, quite a remarkable man. And the fact that Our Lady of Montserrat was so strong in his life.
Yes.
In our previous episode, we actually showed that small chapel that was in the behind the apse in the Basilica on Montserrat that he had helped design when he was younger. So he was an apprentice to like the leading architect for the diocese.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he had already done stuff for Our Lady, and I do believe that there's other little bits and things up in around I think the Rosary Walk that he's worked on.
That's it. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, there's a little, it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. So he clearly loved being up there. He loved nature. And that was a big influence in his work. When you get, I hope everybody gets a chance to go someday.
Yeah.
To get to Sagrada Familia. You've got to grab the pamphlets. If you don't grab the pamphlets, get their app. Their app has all the pamphlets and information on him. So you're going to learn a lot about him, and it makes you want to learn more, which is what Alix and I have been doing the last couple of days, just going, wow, look at this.
I know. He is
amazing.
He is amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah. So his two strong sources of inspiration in his life were definitely his faith, as we heard. I mean, he'd go to Our Lady just to ask what job he should take. And then the history of the church, the Holy Scriptures, tradition, intercession of the saints, doctrine, even Reformation doctrines. And I mean that in the little r Reformation. Within the church, there's always growth and renewal, and particularly the work of, I think it's Dom Granger. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's French, Alix.
Gina. Granger. I don't know.
Granger.
Anyway.
Okay, sounds better when you say it. So he was credited with reviving the Benedictine order in France after all the turmoil that had happened in France. And so he also was known for writing, "The liturgy is the language of the church, the expression of the faith, its vows, its tributes to God. Thus, antiquity must be chief among the main characteristics, any liturgy that comes into being having nothing to do with the any liturgy that comes having nothing to do with the liturgy of our fathers is unworthy of the name. So this was an influence on Gaudí, that looking to the fathers, the source of everything. You're not just throwing away the past, you're growing from it.
Exactly. He's an influence for me.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great quote. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it in his work. He does draw from a lot of different sources. The other is observing nature. Even as a boy, he loved just observing nature, how things are constructed, how the branches of trees held up canopies, which is why I had that little statement in the very beginning. It's actually a statement of Gaudí's to say, as a tree stands. That's how he would design things. You can see it in this bottom picture here, the spreading branches of a tree. And then you look at his pillars and they're following that same model. And Alix, a while back, you had talked about a church you had gone to that you said was very much like trees.
Yes.
The pillars and the stands.
Yeah, it was the Pope's castle in Avignon. And I think I sent you a couple of pictures of it. But the Gothic arches, the medieval Gothic arches, were also inspired by trees. And so what's wonderful about what Gaudí is doing here is he is linking that Gothic past to his designs. And you can absolutely see that. You know, it's just it's a variation on that.
Exactly. And he liked to analyze like how those structures worked. And he also felt like, you know, he couldn't copy it exactly, but he could learn from it. You know, it's God's work is what he's looking at in creation. So it's like, what can we learn from this? Crazy though, despite all of his, you know, his workings and stuff, he tends to get categorized in with the Catalan modernisme. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, which unfortunately people think he's a modernist, but he's not. That phrase was actually meant to show that he might be part of the Art Nouveau, which again, a lot of nature movements and flow and stuff like that, except for one thing, the Art Nouveau stopped at nature and did not continue on to having it point to the creator. Where
that's a very good point.
Kept it pointing to the creator. And so there's a bit of a, you know, movement there as far as where to place Gaudí. Quite honestly, I think Gaudí sits on his own and kind of in between people.
Yeah.
So he's drawn from Pugin's work. The neo-Gothic work was very strong in Gaudí's training. And his master that he worked under, very strong in the neo-Gothic training also. And you can see that. I mean, look at Pugин's arches here.
Yeah,
and,
you totally can. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were looking at these, I said, you'll have to, sometimes Kathryn and I use interesting ways of describing what we're looking at. And I said to her, Gaudí and Pugin sound alike to me, which is looking at it visually, but it's a sound as well, if that makes any sense. And they definitely, so it's more than just a style that you visually look at. There's something else. It's a sound for me that is so similar. But yeah, you can totally see the influence.
Oh, definitely. And so, you know, here you have the harmonious balance. You're looking to nature like the neo-Gothics did. But again, still pointing to creation. But everybody talks about Gaudí as a modernist. Let's jump ahead.
Yes.
You know, working just slightly after Gaudí, before and, you know, during and after Gaudí's time, we have Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, he did some interesting modernist work. Excuse me. And he coined a phrase that was organic architecture. Okay, he's trying to be natural, But his whole thought and philosophy behind that was we're going to harmonize the human habitation with the natural world. So that, they look like they go together. But his way of looking at it is taking nature and just kind of viewing it from the outside. Okay, this looks pretty. Not how is it functioning? How is it pointing to God? And you can see God in just the symmetry and rhythm of nature.
Yes.
It's kind of like we're just looking at nature and how can we fit pretty in that spot? Like following water.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, it's almost like one of the things the modernists do, and even more so postmodernists in terms of from a philosophical perspective, they imagine themselves standing outside of reality, for lack of a better word, outside of nature and kind of observing it and not realizing that we are part of nature. We are part of the reality that God has created. But if you don't have that understanding of God, you don't realize you're not standing outside of anything. You're in it, actually.
I think Wright was standing outside of falling water too often because several of the rooms are actually only about 6 feet 4 inches high, the ceilings.
Wow.
I don't know how tall or short he was, but that would be uncomfortable for a majority of people to have the ceiling that close to your head if you're shorter than 6 feet. Your poor husband, Donald, would be ducking continually.
He would be. He would not be happy in that room. No, not at all.
But I mean, that was done just for the sense of style, to make the house elongated with the river flow.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not fitting the human with nature. That's forcing the nature on the human.
Exactly. Yeah. And not even. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I understand it.
So I also have up here pictures of one of Wright's churches, because I did show pictures of the church that Pugin did, and just so we can get a good apples to apples comparison. So this is Unity Church in Oak Park, Illinois. And it's one of his earlier works when before he went into the whole like prairie movement. He's more into almost an arts and crafts theme here. But this one, he actually talked about basing it on Japanese design and making sure that the auditorium was focused on the pulpit.
Yeah.
But if you drove past this thing, you would not know it's meant to be a place of worship.
Yeah. And do you know what else? I'm just looking at it. Look at the contrast between the natural elements. This is quite ironic here. So you've got these natural living flowers around the altar, which you would expect, but there really isn't a lot of harmony between those natural elements and the building itself.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's interesting. This is one of the first places where he actually designed the electric lights, because they were kind of in that transition from the 1800s to the 1900s. You're getting more electric light brought into buildings. And the first thing he does is put a globe around it.
Yeah. But that's
more open flame.
Exactly. And that actually is a really good element of it. I do like the lights, but I just, it doesn't look like, with his emphasis on nature and wanting to kind of harmonize with nature, when you look at this building, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Just with the natural flowers. Yeah.
And I know I feel sad that we've gotten away from Gaudí, but we got to make sure people understand Gaudí is not this.
No. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. This is a Dominican convent in France that was designed by a Swiss architect. He was a modernist architect by the name of Le Corbusier, which means the crow, but it's so Le Corbusier initially regarded Gaudí as a disgrace to Barcelona, if you can believe it or not. Gosh. That was a conversation between him and Salvador Dali, who was very much influenced by by Gaudí. But one of the things that that Le Corbusier took pride in this Dominican convent, and it's still open today. You know, there's still friars there. He took pride in that there were really no windows in the chapel. Can you imagine? Just
no.
Sorry,
I would not even go there.
It looks to me. And here we are. We just have to be real, dear listeners and viewers. This place looks like a prison. I mean, this is not sacred art. This is not something to lift the mind and heart to God. It's depressing. Yeah. And I don't know where Le Corbusier was in his spiritual life, but I think looking at his design, he was focused on his design and his vision. And I don't see any kind of submission to God in this.
No.
And I would think this would be very difficult for me. And, and Dominicans, there are all kinds of ways you see Dominican chapels and churches. They can be quite ornate or they can be quite austere. But this would be very difficult for me to deal with as a Dominican.
I'd rather have Rights Unity Church over this.
Oh, by far. Yeah.
And then Alix, you had one other one that you wanted to use as a comparison.
Yes. So these two architects that I'm using. So there was Le Corbusier and then Alvar Aalto. Alvar Aalto is Finnish, but these two modernist architects. In a lot of the literature that I was reading were grouped in with Gaudí, and you can see there's just no comparison. This again is a Catholic church in Italy, and again, no windows, but I think it looks like there might be some like sawtooth windows at the very top in the roof, but no indication that this is a Catholic church. It's very stark inside. It's just, it's the antithesis of Gaudí. But again, this comes from, I think, this is why it's so important to understand language, to understand the roots of words, if you can find them out. But the mistake was literally, it looks as if people just looked at the Catalan word, modernisme or whatever it is, and just thought, oh, that looks like modernists, and therefore we're going to, in our minds and in our decision making, group these architects together. What I do think is interesting, so Salvador Dali was a fellow Catalan, and he also loved his culture, and he was highly inspired by Gaudí. I'm sorry I didn't have anything by Salvador Dali that we could show you, but you can see in his paintings that he started the Surrealist movement, but you can see in his paintings, oh, absolutely, he was inspired by Gaudí. He loved him, and he really was quite bothered by Le Corbusier's reading of Gaudí. And apparently later on, he kind of changed his mind, but that's probably because everybody was like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, so before we get into the work we really want to talk about, we need to thank our patrons, because just like Gaudí, can't do anything without our patrons. And so we'd like to thank our patrons who make the Secrets of Sacred Art possible, including Christopher P., Thomas V., Jody F., Brian S., and Bob L. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Sacred Art and all the shows on StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All things need patrons, and we love our patrons.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So let's take a look at some of our favorites. Going to add to the stage here. So this is one of Gaudí's first works that he kind of on his own, and this is Casa Vicens. No, Vicens. Got to say the V like a B.
Vicens. Okay.
Yeah. And this is a quote unquote modernist building situated in the Garcia neighborhood of Barcelona. I feel like when I was there and we were on a bus or just walking around, you could almost feel Gaudí's influence in every building, even though he didn't touch every building. It was interesting. I
can imagine.
It was like, yeah.
Well, of course, he drew from his own Catalan culture.
Yes.
So that would make sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is one of his first major projects. Originally had a large garden area, and the space kind of got divided up, but he had designed 3 of the facades of the house, and the 4th was attached or adjoining to a convent. And this kind of falls under a category of, I think, Alix, you said the word last time, that neo, like Moorish influence. There's a...
Oh, Alhambra. The Alhambra?
No, that was... no, this is Mudéjar?
Neo-Mudéjar. Moorish?
Like that. Yeah, it's Moorish. Yes.
Moorish, yeah, okay.
So it's an architectural trend from that late 19th, early 20th century. Began in Madrid and Barcelona, and it spread all over Spain and Portugal. And they used different elements from when you had the Moors into the Iberian Peninsula. And so you have like a horseshoe arch, you'll have arabesque tiling, abstract shaped brick ornament, and Gaudí was equally skilled in interior decorating. So I had to put a picture of the interior of this house. Wow.
I know.
Super
That's
elaborate.
Amazing.
Beautiful work.
Yeah.
Give it the full zoom here.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
The coloring and everything just pops.
Yeah.
So unique. And it's amazing how many times you would see that color combination of brickwork around the city too.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, the tiles are just, it's beautiful. And in a way, to me, it's almost timeless. The way he's designed this, you could kind of see it maybe in Spain 700 years ago. I'm saying that as someone who's never been to Spain, but it just looks like it's been there and it's always going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like it definitely belongs in Barcelona. The beautiful ironwork. Love it. But he didn't only work in Barcelona. He did take a few jobs outside of Barcelona, and this is one of them. Love this one. This is the Episcopal Palace of Astorga, and I put a little map up there so you can see how far out of Barcelona we are. This is along the Camino Trail.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this site is from December of 1888. He traveled there and worked up his design. It was approved in 1889. And the first stone was laid on the feast day of the current bishop, which was kind of neat. They had planned to finish the palace before the bishop died, but he didn't make it that long. And so there was a bit of a scuff over the design work with the diocesan board. They halted construction for some time. And then a few years later, it was completed by another architect following Gaudí's design. And now it actually houses a museum that has Gaudí's work and also talks about the Camino Trail because it is along the Camino Trail.
Yeah, nice.
But it's neat to see like the work at the top along the roof line and the windows and how they mimic the casa we were just looking at.
Yes, exactly. And also, once we get to the Sagrada Familia, you can see that influence as well on some of the,
And you're seeing still a lot of the neo-Gothic work like you would see Pugin doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, don't you wish that they could have met? I mean, they weren't contemporaries. No. What couldn't they have done together?
2 years apart.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That'd be amazing. But then also following in his neo-Gothic work, this is also outside of, we're not in Barcelona, we're in Leon, Spain. And this was commissioned by textile owners. So they wanted this big, huge headquarters for their textile sales and exchange. And this was Simon Fernandez and Mariano Andres. And they wanted a huge warehouse, space to display and sell their merchandise, but they also wanted homes for the bourgeois families.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah.
Of course. So yes, this is the 7-story residential, one of the few that he did of this size, if only. And what's really neat is how he incorporated the offices on the lower floors. You can see one of the offices there.
Yeah.
And the window architecture, he made sure. And look at those bottom 2 floors. The windows are huge. And that was
lots of light. Yeah.
You got to have all that light for the textiles. You got to show off what you're selling.
Yeah. And what a beautiful place to work. That light. He was really a master of light, wasn't he? And understanding that. And this is the thing. Sometimes, we have all these debates on the environment that people work in. And you can see, like, I'm thinking about, was it the Google headquarters in California? And you can see they're doing all this stuff. And it seems a bit, I don't know. It seems a bit, they've not talked to Gaudí. It seems a bit amusing, I think, but to try to work in that space. But here you can be it's beautiful. I would think if I had to go into that space and do something to work, I would be very serious and focused on my work, and I would be very comfortable there as well. It wouldn't be like this distracting, amusing place or an oppressive place. It would be just right.
Well, both of us, Alix, do textile work. We like to do embroidery and knitting and things like that. So just imagine having one of those corner tower rooms with all that light. You could probably get, 12, 13 hours of perfect lighting.
Oh, I know. Nobody would ever see us again.
Oh, no. I'm always on the quest for where can I get the best light for my cross stitching.
I know. And then that sun does this thing like move. I know.
Ruins everything. It's good for an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. So
let's jump back to Barcelona. Alix, you found this one.
I did. So this was the College of St. Teresa Grand Dux. Oh, that's okay. That's a little part of it. I just thought that this is a convent, I believe. And I just love this because I love the arches. They're not Gothic arches. It's like he's just extended this Gothic arch. You can almost see, it's almost like there were, it's attached to like chains or strings or something in heaven, and it's being pulled upward. This structurally, I just think
that is so funny you said that, Alix, because I think that there's actually one of Gaudí's models for these arches.
Yeah.
And it's actually strings with weights on them. The whole model is upside down.
That is, I believe it.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes, it is strings pulling it heavenly. If you flipped it to the model, it'd be his model upside down.
Isn't that funny? Well, he absolutely translated that beautifully, because that's what I thought looking at it. And I also thought these tiles, how these not only is these buildings, these designs that Gaudí has done, not only are they a testament to his genius, but the way he allowed the craftsmen to shine The tile works. I mean, look at this image of the Sacred Heart and the Immaculate Heart. And, it's just beautiful. The glazes and the brickwork, he just worked with, he brought out the best in the craftsmen, I think, in doing this as well. And the wrought iron gate. Can you imagine?
The ironwork is fabulous.
Yeah.
Like this little fella.
Oh my gosh! Yes, this is the dragon at Parkway, and I just love him. When I saw him, I immediately thought of Smaug. What a fantastic dragon this is! And yeah. I mean, just the imagination and beautifully done. I mean, again, the skill behind the person who could bring Gaudí's vision to life is. Again, it's wonderful when you have wonderful designers and architects who have these visions, but in order to execute these visions, you have to commission very talented craftsmen to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can still see a functioning gate here, and the dragon's not overpowering the gate. It's one with the gate. It's such a beautiful balance.
It is. It's beautiful. It's something. Yeah. And I love the wings. Look at the wings. How they've captured that. They look almost like cloth, like like he could stretch. He almost looks like he could stretch those wings out and fly off. But he's standing guard instead.
Yeah. Stay away from the mouth.
Yes, exactly. Oh, speaking of dragons, this is Casa Batlló. And it's in Barcelona. Did you see this when you were there by any chance? Did you get to see this?
We only saw it in passing. We were trying to jam in so much in a short amount of time.
I know.
So we might have passed it on the bus.
Yeah, I really want to see this house. I really do. So these are a series of apartments or flats for, forget about the bourgeoisie. These were way above the bourgeoisie living in this place. But it's called the House of Bones, and it's got that dragon on it. And you can see how it's so imaginative that the balconies look like bones, or they almost look like skulls. And then the one in the middle looks like vertebrae or something.
Oh yeah.
And the dragon scales, the use of tiles and the colors on this, it looks like something out of a fantasy. It's
you know what else it reminds me of? Are those really great elaborate Gothic manuscripts.
Yes.
You had critters and vines and stuff all in the page margins.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, we've got a couple of other, I had to just even go inside and look at this. So this is, look at this. This is the stove in one of the rooms. It's in a living room. When I saw this, I immediately thought of Middle Earth and a hobbit's house.
It feels like a little hobbit hole.
It does. And yet, look at these walls. I was looking at that going, how did they do that? How did they get that finish on the wall? Is that a tile? Have they just, are these glazed tiles? You can see the parquet flooring, but look at that. And I love them.
Look like tile.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's so beautiful. And all of these multi-hues of browns. It's just beautiful. And even, the fireplace itself, or the stove, kind of almost looks like a dragon's mouth open, like his long neck coming down, and you're going into his little den to kind of keep warm. It's fantastic.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of like a little mouse and a mushroom too. You live on the mushroom.
I know, but it's, what a way to present a fireplace of all things. I mean, this is incredible.
And I wonder how the doors and the windows just flow with it all.
They do. It's very organic. Very organic. I think he wanted, if I remember correctly, he wanted to emulate a lot of the sea, the ocean and water in this. And so everything's very soft, but you could almost imagine this could be like some secret kingdom under the sea.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So we've got a couple of other slides here. Yeah. Look at this.
Whoa.
I know. Look at the tiles. I can't remember I guess they're mosaic tiles, like the little broken up pieces of tiles. I think he
reused scrap tile. Yeah.
He did. And I think he was the first person to do that. But, even though I can imagine that Barcelona in most of the year is beautiful, but this place, it looks like summer on this building all the time.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And the second slide, you can really see, they look almost like fish skulls. It's very cool.
Oh, yeah.
I just love it. And I don't know if we have any more. Oh, yeah. See, I just keep going. This is the top of the chimneys. The chimney.
Oh, is this the backside of the roof?
This is the backside of the roof, the backside of the dragon. You can see his back, his little spines coming up. And again, all of this is tile and roof tiles. And just to the right, you can see that beautiful cross. He always wanted to bring his faith and his love for Our Lady into his secular commissions. And what I love about this is, so he did this fantastic dragon, but he made sure right at the top of the dragon is Our Lady.
Nice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I love that. I've
heard those crosses described as being floral.
Yeah, I actually read somebody said it looked like a garlic bulb, and I'm like, no, please go sit down.
Bulb.
I know.
I don't have garlic bulbs that look that pretty. But
I know.
Because no matter what angle you look at it, you're going to see the cross.
Exactly.
Even if it's from top down.
Yes, that's what's so incredible. Yeah. Yeah. But he'd like to. And can I just say one more thing about the Casa Bato? You don't need to. I was going to say, originally from these flats or apartments, you could see the Sagrada Familia, but over time, more and more buildings have been built up between these two Gaudí masterpieces, and so now they can't see each other, which I think is a bit of a shame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But here we have a view from the top of the park. Not Gruel.
Wheel. Park Wheel. Or Way. Yeah. Sorry, Parkway.
Way. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to our Catalan listeners.
I know. I'm so sorry. I can't even pronounce English right, people, so bear with me. That's why I have Alix.
Oh, goodness. Oh, thanks. No pressure. Oh, goodness. But
here you get a close-up of that tile work where he's repurposing broken pieces of tile and getting these gorgeous colors and layers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look out and see the design of the roof line and the spire with the cross. That's just fabulous.
It is. Can you imagine if all of Barcelona had been designed by Gaudí? What a place. Gosh.
Yeah. Be amazing.
You'd feel like you were in another world. You'd feel like you were in another world.
And I know some people might wonder, why are we not showing the Sagrada Familia right now? Patience, folks.
Yep. We just had, he is such an amazing man that he deserves more than the hour that we're going to give him, to be honest.
Exactly.
But we just wanted to share. The more I learned about him, the more I wanted to know about him.
Yes, definitely.
An incredible
and then
man.
Even just hearing from people that have worked at the Sagrada after Gaudí had even been gone, and the way that they're touched by just being in his work and being there is incredible.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's such an incredible man that there's a cause for his canonization.
Yes, there is.
So what'd you find out about that, Alix?
Okay, so this is something, and again, the more I read about him, the more fascinated I was with his life. He was a genius, and he, I think, when he was a youth, there was a point, like I think for all of us, he came to a crossroads, but he made a decision to follow our Lord and what he accomplished because of that. One of the things I did want to mention, Kathryn, before I go into the cause for his canonization is, and I think this was I think his faith greatly influenced how he designed things, because in the Casa Barro, for example, on the very top floor, one of the things he did this in the Sagrada Familia and all of his other places, he paid attention to the seasons, how the weather was going and the temperature was going to affect people living in these spaces. He brought everything together. And one of the things that quite touched me was at the very top attic floor of Casa Barro, is where like the servants would go, and they would it was like the laundry. So, you'd have probably women up there hand washing laundry. That's really hard work. But the way he made the simple lines, he made sure it was designed so that air would flow through there, so it would be comfortable for them to work. And I think he designed that keeping in mind the dignity of the human person. And that comes across in his designs. And you contrast that with Le Corbusier or some of the other modernists. A human being is not considered in those designs at all.
No. Yeah.
At all. It's not part of the concept. And so I think that's really, really important.
They'll talk about his open airiness, the openness to light, the openness to the airflow. And that will be so present when we get into the Sagrada Familia in the next episode.
Okay.
You'll see all of that in action. And it's definitely the pinnacle of everything that he's ever worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I think his faith and his love for God and understanding his role in God's creation as a creator himself, he really paid attention to these little details to make people's lives beautiful and to make people who had to do heavy lifting work a little more pleasant. Yes. So
exactly.
So here we go. So about his canonization. So in 1992, the Association for the Beatification of Antoni Gaudí was formed in Barcelona. Its founder, architect José Manuel Almuzara, brought together artists, designers, architects, and other lay people to begin the research and campaign for Gaudí's sainthood. Initially, there was some concern from the religious hierarchy in Barcelona that elevating Gaudí to sainthood would reduce his appeal to non-Catholic admirers. So,
what?
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that if we can. To be less Catholic is not to be more appealing to the world. The thing about the beauty of the Catholic faith and Catholic sacred art is appeals to the world. That's why you have people going to Gothic cathedrals all the time, and you've got all this sacred art that, I wish it could be in, churches and cathedrals, but they're in museums. People are drawn to beautiful sacred art. And so I think the religious hierarchy, thankfully, nobody listened to them in that case. I think they were missing they really missed the point there. The whole reason Gaudí was able to create what he created was because of his Catholic faith.
Yes.
And people can look at that and go, wow, So I was kind of shocked by that too. Like when I read that, I'm like, are you serious? So anyway.
And it was interesting for us doing our research. You and I both noticed that it was hard to find information that plain spokenly talked about Gaudí's Catholic faith.
Yeah.
They would sometimes hint at a cult of Christianity or a belief in a creator, but to have them just come right out and say that he was a faithful Catholic was hard to find. A
very faithful, daily communicant, daily confessor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that is, it's almost like I didn't go see the movie on Tolkien that came out. It was like a biography on the life of Tolkien. And in this film, the producers and the directors and the screenwriters really just skirted over his Catholic faith. And I was reading this article about it, and it was saying because they didn't really want to bring that up because most people aren't Christian. They don't identify with Christianity, and they certainly don't identify with the Catholic faith. And they just felt like this would be better for people like that to comprehend, which is, wow, that's a little insulting to people. But, and under this article that I was reading, this person had commented, he said, I'm an atheist and I love Tolkien and I know how important his faith was. And I don't think it was right for you to take that away for my sake. And I thought, yes. And so I think the same thing is happening here with Gaudí. He was such a visionary. He was so faithful. And I don't think people need to be comfortable with Gaudí. Do you know what I mean? He's a genius. You don't need to be comfortable with a genius. You need to be amazed by what he does, because his genius was influenced and motivated and really created by God. And to try to put Gaudí in this little comfortable box is, I think you're going to miss his worldview. You're going to misunderstand him and go away from his work without being able. You could take so much more out of it, but if you want to ignore that part of it, it's going to be a really shallow experience. Yeah. So there you go. But thankfully, there was a Jesuit priest, Father Enric Puig, convinced the Cardinal Archbishop of Barcelona to appoint someone to lead the cause for Gaudí's. The case for Gaudí's cause. And Monsignor Luis Bonet y Armengol received the nihil obstat to open up the investigation in Gaudí's life, writings, and his spiritual practices. In 2003, Gaudí received the title Servant of God. And in a recent interview, and this is in the show notes, we have so many show notes that you really have to go through because...
Please go through the show notes.
Oh my gosh, just the articles and the information about his designs and who he was. Just please go through that. Take your time. Just get a cup of coffee, maybe a piece of toast in the morning and scroll through all the stuff that we've got set up for you.
Not just any old piece of toast. You're going to have a piece of toast with some tomate on there and a nice piece of ham.
There you go.
Just like you're sitting in Spain somewhere and enjoying Gaudí.
Exactly. So in recent years, Almuzara summed up the charism, if we can call it that, of Gaudí when he said, "I emphasize the symbolism of his civil works with a special love for Mary, the Eucharist, and the cross. I would summarize all of this, in my opinion, in one word: humility." As of January 2025, the Archdiocese of Barcelona has completed the Postio Super Vita Virtutibus et Fama Sanctitatis, which is the position on the life, virtues, and reputation of holiness for Gaudí. If approved, this will take Gaudí one step closer to sainthood, and he will receive the title of Venerable. And at least 3 miracles are needed for his beatification. And typically miracles in the Catholic Church are associated with a medical miracle. And I think that's because those kinds of miracles can be investigated and confirmed in more of an objective way. So there's a case of a woman who prayed and asked Gaudí to become the architect of the spine for her daughter who suffered from a congenital spinal condition. And her condition improved beyond the hope or explanation of the doctors. So that's one.
After looking at the roof line of the Dragon House there.
There you go.
You can see why. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You can take, and I love that. I love the faith of that woman to say, you become the architect of her spine. I love that. And now there are an unusual number of people who have kidney stones, and they've prayed to Gaudí to be able to, and they have found relief and recovery. So I'm thinking about all of the, like bricks and stones. He knows what to do with that. Yeah. And some people, now this is interesting, and we can debate about how the Catholic Church defines a miracle. But a lot of his supporters cite that under his charge, not a single life was lost in the construction of the Sagrada Familia. And that's considered miraculous.
Yes.
Yes.
Seeing how it was built, because it was built very differently from the way churches are built now, because he put up one facade wall open inside and out, very open. And I've seen pictures of stone cutters on wooden scaffolding, nothing around them. So it is very amazing and a miracle that no one was injured or died.
Or died, yeah. Nobody was killed. And now, I think the importance of Gaudí's canonization would be a tremendous inspiration to sacred artists today. I really do. Mm-hmm. Not only was he naturally talented and a genius with his architectural vision, he allowed grace to build on nature, and he created some of the most extraordinary buildings in the world. I think most of his buildings are on the UNESCO World Heritage Site, as they should be.
And I did put a link to a Gaudí tour in Barcelona that actually has you travel from place to place to place of all of his works in Barcelona. So, I'm going to
have to take a look at that one. Yeah. So, and it should be noted that were it not for, not only are his designs a wonder to behold, they also take into account the human person. Not just the people who are looking at them, but moving around in them and living in them. And from the organic fluidity of the structures to the play of light and the attention to the comfort of the occupants, all these elements speak to the dignity of the human person. And that in itself should be considered a miracle in our age of glass, steel, and concrete. And we've included a link to the prayer for private devotion if you're inspired to ask for Gaudí's prayer. And right now I'm just going to read the prayer to you. So, God our Father, you instilled in your servant Antoni Gaudí, architect, a great love for your creation and a burning desire to imitate the childhood and passion mysteries of your Son. Grant by the power of the Holy Spirit that I may also learn to dedicate myself to well done work and glorify your servant Antoni, granting me through his intercession the favor I request. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, grant us peace and preserve the family. Amen.
Amen. Wow. So, Alex, here you had found a picture in the Sagrada Familia crypt chapel, and this is Gaudí's grave.
It is. It's where he's buried, which is beautiful. Kathryn, were you able to see this? The place just was so huge. Were you able to?
I was able to see it remotely, and I'll show details of that in our next episode. The crypt chapel has more mass offerings than the main basilica does.
Okay.
And so when those masses are happening, you have to make sure that you arrive at a certain time and also speak the language that they're saying at that mass. So if they're doing a mass in Catalan, then you better be speaking it because they won't let you down the stairs. So they're just trying to keep it quiet because it is down below the main sanctuary. And you can actually see it when you're touring around the main nave and sanctuary. There's little windows where you can look down into it. And it is beautiful. It's one of the first things constructed. And it has a completely different feel than the entire basilica.
Yeah.
Well, I found the entire basilica beautiful. You can tell where Gaudí's hands stopped touching it and someone else took it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did a good job from what we know. And we'll talk more about this next time.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this, you should feel like you're also looking at the chapel that we saw on Montserrat. Very similar feel. The crypt chapel here, the foundation of it and original drawings were actually started by Gaudí's master that he worked with at Montserrat.
Okay.
And so Gaudí was then given the charge of bringing the Sagrada Familia to life. And so he made some changes from the original neo-Gothic design to take it into, this is Barcelona. This is our culture. This is what it's like. So I feel like that's what was significant for Gaudí in all of this, was that he brought in fully who he was, fully who his people are. You know, this is our culture.
Yeah, like
so,
it just reminds me of that Saint Ignatius quote, "The glory of God is a human being fully alive."
Exactly.
And this is who Gaudí was. I really hope that start praying to him, everyone, so he can be beatified. And then Kathryn and I will have to go to Barcelona, and we'll have to go to Rome, and we can like coming to you live.
That'd be great. I'm up for a canonization trip.
Absolutely. And so beautiful. And this crypt, it's so intimate, isn't it? It looks lovely.
For as really massive as the building is around you, this is very intimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
But there's a little sneak peek for next time, folks.
Wow.
So this is just a real close-up of the nativity facade of the Sagrada Familia. Layers and layers and layers. You could stand there for hours, days.
Yeah, the masters that worked on this. Wow.
I hope when you glance at this, you also see Montserrat. It has the same feeling.
Yeah, the serrated. Yeah. Like the serrated mountains. Upside down, though. But that's okay. Yeah. So obviously he liked to work upside down.
He likes upside down. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening to the Secrets of Sacred Art. And you can find previous episodes of the Secrets of Sacred Art and send us feedback at sqpn.com/sacredart. You can send comments by email at sacredart@sqpn.com. Leave us comments on YouTube and visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We've been having some good conversations going there.
We always do.
Going.
Yeah, we always do. Such a great team over there. Great group of people. Yeah. So we'll be back next time when we take a virtual tour of Antoni Gaudí's most beloved design, the nearly finished, breathtaking basilica, the Sagrada Familia. Until then, I'm Alix Murray.
And I'm Kathryn Laffrey, hoping you find something beautiful.
Bye-bye.